Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a former Boeing 737 pilot and a member of the PMDG 737 tech team. Let's have a look at the brand new 737 update that's about to be released for the PMDG 737. And we are going to start right here inside the virtual cockpit with the electronic flight bag. If we go onto the EFB app, you will see that a new tab has been added, which is the Navigation Data Update tab. Now, similar to what PMDG have in the Boeing 777, you're able to update your IRAC from right within here, which means gone are the days where you loaded up your simulator, you went into the FMC and then you noticed, oh, IRAC out of date. No, that is no longer going to happen. You can simply update it live and on the fly from right within here. This is also excellent news for Xbox users, as you will be able to update your IRAC as well now. Now, the IRAC is a very good point already, from which I want to continue for a little moment. Let's go down here into the FMC and have a look at some of the capabilities of the new navigation database that has been added to the PMDG Boeing 737 with this update. Similar to what you had in the Boeing 777, you now have full ARINC 424 compatibility, which basically means the aircraft is now capable of flying about every leg type that there is in the real world. Now let's have a look at an example of something easy, and then I'm going to show you something that's a little bit harder. Now we're going to start with the Olgard to November departure that we have from Corfu. Now, as you can see, the departure takes you straight ahead to 500 feet, then it's a left-hand turn onto a 068 track to intercept radial 116 outbound Garitza VOR until 12 nautical miles or 4,000 feet, whichever is earlier. Now, a lot of aircraft have problems with many successive legs that do not have a defined geographical position. Say, for example, turning at or above 500, then following a track to intercept a radial. The PMDG, however, is mastering those without any problems. As you can see, looking over here at the plan page, if we make this departure on the runway track to 500, 068 degrees to intercept 113 till 12 miles. 12 miles is denoted by the L, which is the 12th letter in the alphabet, or 4,000 feet, whichever is later, then left back to the VOR, and so on. Now, the airplane could have done previously, but they have been refined a little bit and are now working even better than they used to. Now let's have a look at one of the new features. Let's go to the departures arrival page, and we're going to fly the RMP approach for runway 34 over here with the PTAS to Juliet arrival and the BetaX transition. Now let's go ahead, activate this route and have a look at what this looks like. So, if we have a look into the star for the PTAS to Juliet arrival, you can see it's one of those famous Greek arc arrival, based on a DME arc from the Kerkyra VOR down here. So, the aircraft is now fully capable of following these kind of leg types. So, if we zoom this out, you can see a lovely little DME arc being drawn right over here. On top of DME arcs, the aircraft also supports all the other kind of leg types there are, and one that I want to put a little bit of emphasis on is actually not a horizontal leg, but a vertical one, and that is your glide path towards the final runway point. Now, this glide path previously used to be calculated based on the altitude of the final approach fix and the runway elevation. However, that was a workaround, since the previous database did not contain this information. Now, the PMDG 737 database contains this information, and this brings great changes to how VNAV flies an RNAV approach, or basically any non-precision approach that has this information available in the database, which is almost all the approaches. Now, VNAV is going to base its vertical profile on the runway waypoint and the final altitude, which is normally 50 feet above the runway threshold, and then simply draws a 3-degree glide path based on that position. VNAV is simply going to follow this 3-degree glide path on the final, and it's going to disregard those altitude constraints over here. In other words, what this means is that once the calculations take place, and once the aircraft checks this 3-degree path, it simply determines now, am I going to be at or above 1700 over here? Yes, problem solved. Am I going to be above 2900 here? Yes, problem solved. And that's it. And that way, the aircraft flies the non-precision approach quite a bit more accurately than it would previously have done. Now let's go ahead and have a look at another couple of changes. And the next one is going to be in the electronic flight bag once more, and you now have the ground operations page available over here. So this contains all the good items such as managing your ground connection, putting in place chocks and requesting or releasing the ground power, removing those chocks again, and so on. Now, you also can call and release all your ground service vehicles from here, and you can also manage the aircraft doors right from the EFB now. The last page that's been added in this tab is the ground maintenance page, and this enables you to replace your tires or brakes, or to reset your engine EGT limitations, reconnect IDGs, and all the good maintenance stuff. Now, another change to the electronic flight bag is the addition of the autocruise feature to the EFB, so that you can now choose your pause at top of descent or automatic time compression right from up here without the need to go into the FMS for that. Looking into further updates that have been done with this change, next up we are going to have a look at the engine model. Now, you will already notice that the EGT runs quite a bit lower now than it used to do previously, so now you have more realistic engine indications, but it's not just the indications that have been overhauled, but also the engine behavior itself. So, a real-life turbofan engine is very slow to react close to ground idle. What this means is that the first couple of percent, like say for example from 20 to about the mid-30s, the engine is going to be very slow to respond, and then when getting close to the 40s, the engine will respond a lot quicker. Now we are going to have a look at that in action in a few moments. Let me just quickly go ahead and program the rest of the FMS over here, so that we actually have some good data available. Quick change that I'm gonna do, I will delete this 70 restriction up here so that I can enter a lower cruising altitude. And we still have 4,001, okay, that's fine. I mean, I'm just gonna do 4,000. That's fine. Alright, N1 limit, 22k D rate, flaps 5 takeoff, and the speed's going right into here. V2 at 140 is now set. Alright, so now that we are ready for departure, let's have a look at how our engines are going to spool up. I've released the park brake. Now I'm going to position my thrust levers to 40%, and you will see how the engines take a much longer time to get out of ground idle. And once they're about in the mid-30s, you will see how they start running up quite a bit faster. And a little feature, they're actually overshooting the target thrust setting at 40% a little bit because of the momentum that the engines are gaining up. That is not a bug, that is actually a feature of the real-world Boeing 737, even though I might rather call it a system limitation in the real one and a feature in the PMDG. Alright, now let's go ahead and press toga, and let's see how our engines are gonna respond. We're gonna cancel those master cautions for now. So, as you have seen, the engines were much quicker to run up to takeoff thrust above the 40% mark, which is correctly simulated in the PMDG now. Alright, rotate. The entire flight model of the aircraft has also been overhauled, even though it might be worth mentioning that if you're using a standard consumer grade joystick, you will probably hardly feel the changes. However, if you are using the high-end expensive hardware, you are going to feel some changes right away and immediately. However, one change that all of you are going to feel is going to be in the flare, which has also been overhauled, but we're going to get to that when we are going to fly the approach and the landing a little bit later on. For now, let's go ahead and engage the autopilot over here. Command A, retract those flaps on schedule, climb up to 3,000 feet and make a little right-hand turn here, let's say heading of 190, so that we can go ahead and explore some of the changes to the approach logic of the aircraft. Now, as we are currently en route, let's go ahead and have a look into another feature that's been added to the 737, and this is going to come to life only in bad weather, so let's just make it rainy conditions here for the time, and let's go ahead and activate the weather radar. As you can see, the Asobo weather radar has been added to the aircraft now. Now, this is the same weather radar system that we used to have in the Boeing 777, so it still falls under all those limitations, but a lot of you were actually keen to have this, so it has been added to the aircraft now. Okay, let's go back to some better weather conditions over here so that we can enjoy the look outside as we are about to fly our approach into Corfu. Couple of changes over here. Let's change that cruising altitude to become 3000. Here we go, and then we can go to VNAV. Now, the 737 has seen a couple of changes to the approach logic, as I have previously explained. Let's go ahead and have a look at a couple of them for our flight. So, first of all, the aircraft now has the option for an automatic LNAV engagement on a go-around. And this option can be selected in the PMDG menu, Aircraft Equipment, and down here you have Auto Arm LNAV for missed approach. Now, Auto Arm LNAV is one of those features that can cause quite some confusion for Boeing 737 pilots, especially early on in their career. So let's go ahead and have a look at what that looks like. You can see on the FMA, LNAV is active and LNAV is armed at the same time. What may look like a bug to many actually is a feature. So as soon as you're on the FMS approach track, or as soon as you're on the leg in the FMS that is coded as the approach part of the flight, you are going to get LNAV armed, so LNAV in white. Now you can have two options armed at the same time now. So LNAV is armed right now, but if I press, for example, VORLOG, and if I had some proper VOR set up now so that the system could actually arm, you would see VORLOG right next to it. So you can have two armed lateral modes in the 737 now. So let's go ahead and start our setup for the approach. I'm just gonna dial down that MCP altitude here so that the aircraft can start the descent on its own as soon as it deems necessary. Let's also go ahead and start extending our flaps over here. And with that we can go back to arming LNAV. Now, flaps 30, okay, now all the good stuff is in. I'm not going to use a minimum here since we are already visual with the field. Okay, so let's go ahead and have a look at how the aircraft is actually going to fly the approach now. You can see we're level in 2900 now, and now the vertical path approaches. The aircraft intercepts that, and now it simply is going to follow that vertical path. This means it may not follow this altitude restriction over here. It will abide to it. It will be above 1700 there, but if the vertical profile comes in a little bit higher than that, then that is completely expected system behavior. Welcome to the beautiful and wonderful world of Boeing VNAV systems. Okay, so we're now established on the final descent path, and this is the 3-degree descent that I have previously pointed out over here, and no longer based on the altitude restrictions that we have over here, even though normally those altitudes will be designed to match exactly. So when we overfly the Kilo Romeo 600 waypoint, I would expect my altitude to be somewhere very close to that restriction. But it may be slightly above or slightly below, which is completely expected system behavior. Alright then, let's go gear down, flaps 15, and we're going to start preparing ourselves for the landing, where we are going to have a look into the newly improved flare behavior of the aircraft. Okay, so let's go ahead and set our missed approach altitude here. 5,000 feet set. You can see it stays in VNAV path, keeps descending. Flaps 30. And here we go. Alright, so LNAV is armed for the automatic missed approach, so if we press the toga button now, LNAV is going to engage and the aircraft will automatically track the missed approach, while previously, or without that option installed, the aircraft may only continue on the runway track and you have to engage the LNAV mode manually. So the flare behavior of the aircraft has also been revised, and we are gonna have a look at that right now. So let's go ahead and recycle the flight directors here. And now we're going to fly ourselves onto the extended center line. Boy, I love those offset approaches. But as you can see, the aircraft is really flying the published approach very nicely, automatically, but I just love those Greek airports where you have to take over manually at the end and complete the final establishment on the centerline manually. Alright, so how do you flare a Boeing 737? Well, that's quite easy. Make sure that you go over the runway threshold at a nice and stable position. That's normally 50 feet or the published threshold crossing height. Make sure you have the required vertical speed, which is normally about 750, 800 feet a minute. And between 20 and 30, you are going to increase the pitch just slightly by about a degree, maximum 2, and pull the thrust off so that it reaches idle when the aircraft touches down. And that is how you flare a Boeing 737. So, a little turbulence over here.
100.
So, nice and stable.
30, 20,
Flare.
10.
And fly it right onto the ground. And here we are. So, that is a little overview of some of the changes done with the latest PMDG Boeing 737 update. So we have seen enhancements to the electronic flight bag. The aircraft is now capable of updating the IRAG Live. It has the automatic LNAV on go-around feature. It has the new nav database fitted to it. And last but not least, it also has a new engine behavior. And it also has a new behavior in manual flight, and most importantly in the flare. I do hope you found this one interesting. I hope that you are going to like the update. It is going to come out very soon. There is no exact release date known at the moment. And with all of that, I would like to say thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this one. Be sure to leave your feedback in the comments below. And with that out of the way, thank you very much. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you for watching, and see you all again on the next one.